Intelligence increments according to its size. After being killed in a battle in the heterogeneous zone, it can still be revived. Through the work, a large number of individuals. The same race in the world. I thought of this at first. He turned his head and looked at the person next to him and said, if all of our competitors are all in this condition, if we want to drive out these invaders, we must bring the battlefield to this world. At the same time breaking the opponent's resurrection condition. Make it sleep forever. At this point, I also lower my voice. But that's very difficult to do. Even if you have a sword like you. He also had to swing two swords. One of them is to kill aliens. One of them is to kill his own kind in this world. Corresponding to the required merits. To cut these two swords. I'm afraid to look at history. Rarely can a king do that. Now floods and droughts have been permanently suppressed. Your son is no longer eligible to accumulate the same merit as you. Looking straight ahead, I said. Blindly quiet, obeying the laws of our ancestors and imitating them. The king's path. That's not what a wise king should do. When you hear that, your face is full of confusion. The police didn't notice and kept talking. After I killed the alien, has trampled the territory of the great, and oppressed this world. If you can get out of here in peace, remember to tell my children. Guardian angel of the border. The king died for his rule. Your father went to a faraway place. Use your life to suppress the gods. If only one day you would carry them. Don't embarrass the cow raw people. It's embarrassing to do something with a splinter. Just said. The wind was also transferred to the sword. Top Cham. A sword is an object made of interweaving. VA touches and divides between dynasty and birth martyrs. In the world of high, it's the supreme treasure, born at the time of the opening of the world. It is also the source of the sword. In the world of the Highlanders, its conditions of use are extremely strict. The emperor needs to expend public energy, body and soul as fuel, before you can click. Hentai, however, conditions of use are so harsh. It also determines its secular power. To put it simply, a man with a sword can forcibly score a fatal weakness on the target, based on the 3 dimensions of time. Geography and harmony, for example, right now. The weakness that the king of the great prepared for sample gaping hole is to drive the future. The enemy invaded the country. The army will lose all its power and become weaker than ever. When the new moon comes, so weak that people with swords can kill instantly. Follow the movement of the high. A new moon appears in this world. Sample gaping hole at the bottom. It's also extremely scary right now. My power is running out. What's going on? Who is playing the devil? According to its strength is weakened. The ice under my feet, its body suspended in the air, was also smashed. Immediately fell from the air to the ground. This time he was standing on the back of the dragon. Lord, follow me to kill me. Another sighed. Antarctica foot soldiers now a little sigh, said Ra. It's a shame that the 4 religions that make up this world. It's not what we need. But there's not just one alien. Use the power. Time on the battlefield. We just need to find the right opportunity to sneak into their world. He said once that Kuan Yin looked indifferent. The Antarctic footprints stopped. Kuan Yin just glanced at him right now. God as people come to this world. Before us. He used the sword. Loss of interest model. They are likely to die at their hands. Do you want to see how this god died? The South Pole nodded. Of course he's gone. Another side, the mother-in-law is currently lying on the ground. Where is my power? Where is my power? His mouth swelled as if something wanted to come out. Very fast, the demons that fought with Kuan Yin before. Was it sprayed out? 2 people flew to the place. I saw a bunch of demons around the lock. Keep your eyes open and stare at them. High scene from the back of the dragon jumping down. Calm down. Don't pay attention to them. They have no enemies. Still a little nervous to say something. But at the right time, there's a demon in there talking. The king said no wrong. We are not the enemy. Loss of interest model has been weakened by the power of the new moon. They can't make us slaves anymore. We're free now. But those who have turned into demons like us, it's impossible to do something with a sample hole. You can relax. The next group of people bowed their heads, begging the king, let's kill the diverticula. Help us be liberated. High scenery does not land, but clenched the sword forward. Right now, the eyes are slowly opening. In front of him, right now, there's only one body coming. Wait until the high ground comes before you. The new model tries to prop up her body. Look at the enemy. You are the devil. High airflow scene on the flared reply correct. The one who attacked me. It has to be destroyed anywhere. She was not afraid but laughed. We invaded those worlds. I've never seen this kind of trick before. You are a human using this kind of technique. The price to pay is not small. You can cut some more swords. Don't forget, we can be resurrected. The high-pitched sword, the deep-faced sword, replied, the cost of this sword is very high. But I can guarantee that this will be your last resurrection. This sword is unhindered. Just like that, straight up into the gaping hole. At this time, the 2 Kenyan people just came. Take out the sword. The mother's body immediately fell down. He doesn't pay attention to it anymore. Turn your head and look at the 2 men. The bodhisattva of the world itself. It's amazing. I thought you would just stand outside. Look at this place. And the gods defeat the love. Antarctic foot soldiers squint eyes at the enemy. The beauty is amazing after using the sword code. But it's still in this state. Gas and merit of this angel. I'm afraid there are only founding kings. The mighty dynasties. It can be compared. Qin's strategy at the time was correct. It is dangerous to go to war with the enemy. It's too big. I see you 2 never speak up. The scene speaks again. The world has cracked down on you. Please come back. Don't waste your energy in this place. The 2 Guanyin people are still silent. It seems a little impatient to see that. Don't believe me. Or do you have another mission? After a while, he turned around. If you want to stay, stay. No matter what, this will be over soon. To pull the geography starting from this moment. In this paradise, there will be no more room for your white worm. Once again, a sword hits the ground. The power to immediately affect. LAN spills out to the whole world. At the same time, somewhere in the world. At this time, there are constantly white worms born. I was born for a moment. They were burned by the golden light. Right now, the link between the eggs was also severed. We're free. But there's a connection between us and the divergent lower rectum. It still exists. Life and death cannot be measured. Are constantly piling on him. Just like this moment. There's a lot of holes. Private was born, but in the next moment. Together they go to destruction. It's unbelievable. The king of Kir, how did you end up doing this? The dragon is also speaking now. After this white worm was killed, hole in the ground, there is no possibility of a new resurrection. Right. Why did he turn into a state? Living and dying is the birth of this white worm population. It's actually closer to some natural phenomenon, similar to wind in theory, for example. He looked at her and said, "No need to pay attention to it anymore. My intuition tells me. Hole in the ground. Private. I couldn't get out of the state in front of me. Then we can no longer threaten our world." While they were talking, it's not far away. Right now, there's a space vortex that's slowly forming. Everyone who's here is amazed. Quickly turn your head and look. Very quickly from the inside, a man dressed as a stick magician goes out. When you see the enemy, you scream. Is the new enemy Sao? People don't pay attention to him. Endlessly glancing left, neither this person nor that person. Finally, his eyes turn to the sky. Sitting on the ground. This won't be you. The human brother is dying. When I heard that, I shouted. Talk with a little respect. But he just finished. Then the Kier, he turned into a white light that passed over him. The enemy's speed was so fast, no one here can react. Once again, he stood in front of the high. Is it convenient to reveal a little? The secret to killing your dissolute lower rectum. Despite his power, considered the weakest among the former Japanese domination fake, but it's hard to erase permanently. Its ability to revive and return. Even the most powerful ones among the former Japanese domination fake, it will also be difficult to do this. High seen sharp eyes look at the enemy. Do you think I will tell you everything? Of course not. So we're going to use equivalent intelligence to trade with you. He just finished. 3 Guanyin people also came behind him, but he had no fear. Calmly turn your head and look at them. Be quiet, gentlemen. You're interrupting the conversation between me and this old man. Follow him looking back. Then the movement of the 3 Kuan Yin people was also stopped. Stand still in the air. Your life expectancy is too low. You will lose your life as soon as I touch you. First, we'll freeze the space around you, waiting for me and this guy to finish talking. I will let you out right now. A dragon's claw came down from the sky. The reverse error is not small. If you touch me, I will touch you. Kill me. Even though there's a light. Help the Kier to stop this claw of iron. But he still had aftershocks that sputtered fresh blood. The police now realized that something is wrong. He immediately looked at me screaming. He's not fooling you. Look at your hands. When you hear that, immediately bow your head. Look at my claws. This is death curse on Sao contact. It quickly opened up the borders of the land. The part of his cursed hand slowly peeled off. Kier youth, wipe away the blood on the corners of your mouth. Life pure energy. That's the problem. If the 3 people next to you are now dead. The police officer stood up right now and asked, "What kind of gods are you?" The young man turned his head and said, "I am the embodiment of the Greek temple." Baron slaps the enemy. You probably don't understand the expression. Then I'll change the words to make it easier for you to understand. I exist like this in your world. It's called the second god. When I heard this name, I was amazed. When you see that, ask a question. You know him, look at them smiling. Trust me. I really have no ill will. I just want to make it clear how you do it. That kills the dissolute hypothalamus. It's just that. Of course, factional considerations. Of course, you are wary of me. To prove your sincerity, we can get the same intelligence to trade first. Trust me, you will have no better chance to understand. Not about us anymore. I thought for a moment, then replied. What we can believe in the answer you give. Not mixed with lies. And our problems. And you're all equally valuable. Guan Yin was frozen in the air. Speak up now. I can be your mediator. Just let us engage in asking questions. Is to take a glance at her mouth a little bit raised. The premise is that you can dispel the doubts of this old man. With me and this old man. Let's get you involved in asking questions. At the same time on the north, Fan Ki has now been carried by the King Theo through the gates of space to the prophets. They hide on the roof. Seeing that is terrifying. Even the arrogance of the traitor is affected. The king threw a counter-attack. The fake catches the counter flag, and then it's hard to understand. Look at the king. The king quickly left. Take him to the bridge and give him a drink. I want him to be my man. When the two prophets heard this, they answered in unison. Your will is our mission. Viet trach onions on the roof, in a very anxious heart. You can't let them take the counter flag away like that. Suddenly, the king raised his head. Look at where he's hiding. You think I can't feel you? When you hear that, your face changes. Extremely stressful. On the side of the ice world, Kuan Yin now took out a scale to say. This is called the center of symmetry. It's a wonder. You can only be born in the small world, where fairness and trade exist at the same time. This object is capable of distinguishing authenticity and value measurement. After buyer and seller. Establishment of a transaction contract. The offender refuses to make a transaction. Will be forced to collect the transaction item. It meets the needs of both of you. Let's take a lead. We have no problem. What about your brother? The high scenery also calmly replied, I have no opinion either. Guan Yin took out a piece of iron and put it on the scale. Then the transaction officially begins. First, I will take revenge. It's equivalent to being an intermediary. At the left end of the center symmetry, we'll ask the same question at this price. Waiting for the scale to lean to one side, Kuan Yin glanced at the South Pole foot soldiers. Ask the rabbit first. South Pole foot soldiers nod their heads and ask. The first question is, you are clearly not a false leader. Why Sao has the way and the power of rules? It's almost like a preacher. The South Pole just finished asking. Then the value of the question appears on the other side of the scale. He looked at the scale of his chin. Logically speaking, the value of this question must be much higher, compared to the value they've given us as an intermediary. But this is not supposed to be. They move their hands and feet with this scale, or the question doesn't matter to them. It's just a matter of tracking. We can't rule out the possibility of the value that we think. It's different than what they think it is. Take it away. How does this thing work? Wait until the transaction is over. If you steal it back, the researcher will know. Very fast, he spoke up to answer your question. Because we're a higher existence. Use words that you can understand. To explain, then we are the religion is us. Hearing that, I was terrified. It's not that the capital's speculation is correct. Let's start explaining things to people. In our world, the fundamental particles that make up everything in the world, they're all moving randomly, endlessly on the infinite scale of the universe. There are always some particles that can be transformed from chaos to order. In this way, life is born. The fire of wisdom and reason is lit at the same time. Speaking of which, he kept pointing up. And we're up here. It's the product of a part of the world. After awakening his own consciousness, Antarctica foot soldiers heard it and shouted angrily. Shit, how can religion create its own will? Shrugging your shoulders, this is the truth. If you don't believe, you can look at the wonder that your friend took out to check if we're lying or not. Guanyin looked at the scale and said, Ra is real. The second question, we can become the chief hypocrite in. Your world is not. Complaint Asia quickly replied, of course, it's possible, as far as we know. Many visitors from the orderly world, like you, have become similar existences. In this chaotic world, they call themselves gods. You want to speak up and keep asking. But the dragon stopped it. Stop it. It's your question. And the corresponding central value has been equalized. Next, it's our turn to ask questions. Looking straight at the enemy, he asked, Foreign god, why do you want to invade our world? I just asked the question. Then the question of doubt on the balance immediately grows. Then the scale is tilted to one side. If you see that, speak up. Go straight to the point. You've seen it too. The value of this question is very high. I'm afraid it's the same as my question. You still want to ask why. If you ask this question, you can't ask another. Somewhere, the police officer immediately answered the question and nodded. Okay, the reason that we actively attack your world. It's because our world is about to be destroyed. That's extremely difficult for people to understand. Destroy SAO complaint Asia quickly explain. I'm serious. The world is in chaos. It's just a creator's dream. When the creator wakes up, the dream world will fall apart and everything will become nothing. Although over the years and months, my body and the other gods always protect the vision of the creator. But dreams will eventually wake up. And all our efforts are just to delay time. Let it come as slowly as possible in the future. After listening to the high scene, speak up. So, you want to attack our world? Because I want to take over the nest and survive longer in this world. Why complain? A snap the answer is not wrong. Even if you don't have to rely on your intuition. High scenes can also be detected. In the answer to the complaint, there's a lot of key information. He's not lying. But his answer, there's definitely a difference with the truth. High ground and trust is like that. Let us ask now. It's my turn to ask. You have killed the female prostitute. How private? High police hand capture return code sword with you. It's actually very simple. Now I will prove it to you. High view knows, even though the enemy from beginning to end, they didn't show a hint of malice. But it's just that he wants to make this trade. And until the transaction is over, that they can bring critical intelligence in here. Go back to the world or not. The enemy never assured me. Coincidentally, Gao plans to do the same. At the moment, make a decision to go to the world of the divergent rectum. The police have thought of a kind of possibility. If you talk about himself, has permanently suppressed floods and droughts. That's enough to cut two swords. Time and place of the sword. Then alone to the outside. Oppress the pagans like him. At that time can get the merit to slash the third sword. Harmony or not? The answer is very likely. Thinking about it, the scenery in my heart is more fun. So see out the causes network. Maybe not just in exchange for an alien. However, very quickly, the police realized that the angel carried his body and soul. I'm afraid it can't be maintained, so that he can slash Ra to the last sword. This has to be replaced by death. City over here. God can do this for him. Only strict and quiet. After a thought. The high scene has made a reluctant choice. But right. Go to where it is. Chaotic world, former Japanese cemetery. This world, it's a top-level existence in a chaotic world. It is equivalent to the 6 saints in the world. It's like the reincarnation of a Greek waterfall. The work of the Baron, slapping the enemy circuit, is to look after the old Japanese cemetery. Record the live state, the death of the former Japanese domination fake, participating in the battle for the world. As usual, I sit and watch the dishes, whining and sighing. This is a pointless con job. Maybe I'm a leisurely worker. And the most boring of all. The embodiment of complaint. It's because of the birth mechanism of the former Japanese dominant fake has been identified. They exist both in the present and in the past. To exist forever. Suddenly right now, he found out again. A new tomb was formed. This is the grave of the divergent lower rectum. When I saw that, I was amazed. The atria of the atrial muscle has been killed. Tea sauce. Recently, how often the world's indigenous people have ordered. The counterattack on the chaotic world is getting higher and higher. I don't know what the 3 of you think. Let's just ignore them. But it didn't stop there. On the gravestone of the love holes. Then the writing on the tombstone faded away. That means he's come back to life. But then the writing came back. It means that the blood vessel dies. The cycle is just like that, over and over again. What's in front of you broke the perception of the enemy Baron. About former Japanese domination fake, this ex-Japanese from Iker. At another time, he was cursed to die. And come back again and again. This is really causing the Baron to slap the enemy. It's impossible to understand. That frequency is like infinite life and death. Endlessly piling up to the top of the sample hole at the same time. Every time it is born. It was accompanied by a short death. And it can't be saved. Until the end of the universe. It's also at this moment. The Baron slapped the enemy's pulse. The 3 pillars. There is a fear of the world. There is also a cause. I fear that the world is in order. They had exceeded their initial expectations by a lot. After the Baron slapped the enemy's pulse, he realized this. It immediately opened the door. Through the atrial muscle. He wants to clarify. Who and how did they use it? To kill former Japanese dominant fake profiteering model. The secret is about to be revealed. But look at the attitude of the high. Complaining is impossible to understand. I thought he was discovered. The trap we've hidden in the transaction. But this transaction is a conspiracy. I don't believe you will refrain from the exchange of intelligence. Intelligence just needs to have this opening. Next. Whether it's due to normal translation, or take me out as a target. We will all suffer. The high scenery clenched tightly and shouted the sword code. Transmit all flesh and blood. The rest of the soul and soul entered. From today on, to spread his essence and incarnation. I will have to die at the hands of my master martial artist. If you think about it, you have a little understanding. Ra is like that. This guy's rock turned out to be a sword. In the hand of the sword, I'm afraid it exists just like me. Or even higher. It turns out our own kind. Inside the orderly world. They all exist in the form of dead things, before completely vanishing in the midst of heaven. The police immediately threw the sword into the air, shouting out the sword. He immediately jumped up and grabbed the long sword. The next scene says, instead of killing the enemy. This is also the last word of the high priest. On earth. Hold your tears right now. It's turned into blood on the corner of the eye. God obey only, and then he he hurried towards the evil side. The complaint is now completely transparent. No wrong, no wrong under the support of the key or sword. This mortal has been endowed with the concept. They can kill me. Next, raise your hand. It was immediately locked in the air. There's no way forward. The difference between you and me is too great. The distance between being able to kill me and making this possibility a reality is very important. He hasn't finished yet. Then the wind appeared behind him. A hand on his shoulder held him back. It's very big, isn't it? The sound has just appeared. The Antarctic foot force has also appeared. Even though the level of life is not commensurate. But that doesn't mean we have no way to break your spell. According to his voice, that he was once again free. He didn't hesitate to continue. Complaint A was retained by Kuan Yin. There's no way to avoid screaming. This stupid lover, the price of touching me. You basically can't afford it. Even if you have 10200 lives, it's not enough. It's quiet, the ferocious face screams. You just have to do your majesty's will. That's not good for me. The sword will not be hindered. Immediately pierced through the body. At the same time, all the flames of life in the dead are destroyed. To put out a complaint is still unbelievable. The road is the tomb of the Lord. And yet, you are rejected by people like you. Before I finished, I was burned to death. Follow his death. The world of ice quickly cracked. There are countless gases below that are constantly coming out. If you can see this change, then speak up. What's left? After he died, it's resonating with death in this world. A large amount of death gas is escaping. This is extremely dangerous. At this point, the body is a little rough. This is the price she has to pay, because she has just touched the grievance. She held up the jade jar and told you to go. We stay to suppress mutants. Antarctic foot soldiers come to pull out the sword. Then throw it. Cho In said no to me. I was surprised to hear that. Why don't you have the intention to be religious? In a world of chaos, why do you stay? The Antarctic foot soldiers calmly replied. The new owner needs your support. The great way of Kuan Yin can send accurate alien intelligence to the small celestial world. Compared to you, I stay here to suppress mutants. This is really the right choice. Don't forget when you get back. Immediately block the passage to this world. Otherwise, we're afraid that this death gas. I will follow the gap to your world. Guan Yin saw him mean that. I want to say something crazy. But without giving her a chance to say Ra. He turned his head and continued. Since I haven't changed my mind. Get out of here. He watched the two men leave inside. When does it start? I realized that I was no longer your first Antarctica. It's an independent individual. Is when the Avalokitesvara reaches an agreement with the higher world. The first Antarctic, he isolated a path of consciousness, put in his first infinite prime minister, that the yang frequency condenses into, to facilitate SAO action. Maybe that time. It can also be after the asymptotic. Do 10 long enough to resist the 4 serious objects, Hoa. He told me he can do what he likes next. Later, call me your father. The ocean without hesitation nods. Are you curious why I immediately changed my name? The radio station replied calmly. You are an independent individual. Little things like changing the name. No need to ask. He was thinking about the old story. Then this time, the demons come together in front of you. We have also come to help suppress him. Before the passage of the world is closed. We can't let these deaths materialize into the open world. If you hear that, it's hard to see them. You have the opportunity to become a great teacher. The slaves of this world, why do you have to take such a big risk? To help people who are not involved. If you're exposed to these deadly gases, then you might die. One of the demons immediately responded. You are not like that either. After seeing the scene, the king sacrificed his life to protect the world we want to protect. Who made a decision? Go against your own interests. And it doesn't fit your own personality. Then he squinted his eyes. That's right, even though I was born in Antarctica. But we also have our own experiences and our own will. Compared to being radical, get rid of your own death. Continue to last longer. The more we want to control our own will. To leave my mark. Prove we've been to this world. Just like the king of Kier did. On the side of Europe, the volunteer canopy was opened by Vietrach. After a fight with the enemy, the fake has now realized. Understand then just the time of contact, interacting with the outside world. His body just turned from bad to real. Other times, any attack on him will be eliminated. Move the scene back to Liao City, back to a time not too long ago. Li Spring looked at the frequency of Duong, asking the frequency of Duong, can I trust you? The bottom of the mouth is slightly raised. It's amazing. Someone like you. Say things like this again. For someone who was abandoned like me. Lai Zuan actively received Sai, said, I admit that my judgment about you is wrong. Has caused damage 7, to a certain extent. For power in the indigenous. So now I want to make it right. He asks you seriously what you want to fix. Spring quickly put. The 7-year-old version of what you feel. And the idea, using dreams to seal off the aliens. Not bad, but no matter how good you are. You can only kill an intruder. This does not affect the overall situation. When you hear that, ask. So what you mean is, Spring, I have a plan. If everything goes well, it could reverse the collapse of the world. Hear that, the 2 men in the back immediately asked. What's the plan? Spring quickly said out everything. After I succeed the firstborn. I once had a transaction with a bank. To get the complete exoneration method out of his hands. I plan to transfer this great school back to the Avalokitesvara. Let him use this method. Dismantling people in other worlds. Then convince the fairies. And the first alternate reality of that world. Invite them to use this method. To our world. Let's fight against the Kier. When you hear that, you are full of doubt. I remember that the method of absolution. It seems that only it's one-on-one. We use this method of absolution. Liao City battlefield to do SAO. And we can't find many helpers. That way, in a short time. Lai Spring hands out. In the palm of his hand, there's a couple of sprouts right now. The method of obtaining amnesia is 1-for-1. But the amputation method that we've improved. It's not like that. At this time in the sky, the dragon's voice echoed. The earth and sky are ringing again. Ayan and Kuan Yin have now succeeded. From the ice world back. As soon as he came out, he looked down and screamed. Foreign god orifice model lower ectopic. He was executed by the king with a sword. These invaders. It's the product of a moral component. After having awakened his own consciousness. That's amazing to hear from the masters over there. Look at the loincloth. The loincloth has been killed. I can't stop screaming out loud. Only to their original world. We can actually kill them. Kuan Yin is next door right now. My whole body is almost polluted. The rate of death is faster than we expected. At this speed, We're afraid we can't send intelligence to the right point. For people in other worlds,